Je Chembor Turdan Hingmi Jang, Loner Monum Chembor Ngabjat, Bakar Dargam Santo Shermerdo, or Tomba Tiji Janla Ki Jamsar, the Chajor Telmi Changamsa, Jawar Tiji Shando Yella.
The supreme, profound and subtle Dharma is rarely encountered in eons. Now we hear and follow it, may we realize the Tathagata's meaning. To liberate beings, please generate bodhicitta before teaching. Next, we will continue our teaching on the Udana Sutra. This sutra consists of 33 distinct chapters. Currently, we are actively discussing the very first chapter. This profound Dharma teaching itself was originally given by the great and enlightened Shakyamuni Buddha during his very first turning of the Dharma wheel, and it belongs to the core teachings of the Four Noble Truths. It should be the simplest for us to study. At first, I genuinely thought that perhaps this time am I making it too simple? But judging from our recent oral Dharma examination, it truly seems to be going really well in all aspects. It's neither particularly simple nor especially difficult. For now, let's continue diligently studying in this particular way. Overall, it is clear that everyone is being very diligent and dedicated. If we keep going like this consistently over time, I'm sure many of us will definitely see significant improvement in our Chinese language proficiency and make some tangible progress. We will also gradually come to understand them. At first, I also felt a bit unaccustomed to it. You all might also feel a bit unaccustomed. Now that we've switched to a more suitable platform, basically, we're becoming more and more in tune with it. Of course, during this process, I also really hope that many people with a karmic connection, because some individuals have an especially strong yearning for the Dharma, and their faith is extremely strong, but due to various causes and conditions, they are unable to listen in person. However, in this modern era of technology, it's not necessary to strictly adhere to just one particular form. There should be a variety of convenient methods. So everyone can also make use of various convenient, accessible methods to receive these profound teachings themselves. Actually, these teachings may seem quite simple on the surface, as the teachings from the first turning of the Dharma wheel, but in reality, they might be the most helpful for our own mental continuum. If we can truly give rise to the perception of impermanence in our hearts, then practicing any Dharma in this world might become an easy thing to do. So for us, theoretically, this should be relatively easy to understand, and there aren't any particularly difficult topics. But in terms of actual practice, this should indeed be quite helpful for all of us. That's why many great masters of the past often quoted some scriptural evidence from this sutra. So I sincerely hope that on one hand, everyone will study very diligently, and on the other hand, maintain a profound sense of inner joy. In today's particularly restless and turbulent world, we have the precious opportunity to listen to the profound teachings of Shakyamuni Buddha. The teachings personally spoken by him are truly extremely rare to encounter, even in hundreds of thousands of eons. We should understand this ourselves and fully realize how incredibly precious it is to have this opportunity. It's hard to say whether we'll have such a chance again in the future. At the same time, whether it's the audio recordings here, some things, for those who truly have faith, should be quite carefully preserved by oneself. Sometimes I think, in this technological era we live in now, everyone absolutely relies on it for practically everything. But once a major war breaks out or something significant happens, for example, on the internet, if some unforeseen problems were to arise, you might suddenly become destitute. Therefore, it is crucial that we ourselves should, just as we accumulate wealth, which of course is very important for ordinary worldly people everywhere, but for those who truly seek liberation, these Buddhist scriptures and the materials that are directly related to our own personal study and practice are even more profoundly worthy of our careful. So as we are giving lectures every day this time, each session is a little over an hour. Sometimes it might not even be a full hour. and our recitations before and after the class as well. I personally think that in a day, the essential daily recitations for a dedicated practitioner, the most important and fundamental ones, are already included within this collection, including the regular recitations we do at the Institute. As devoted Buddhists, we engage in the practice of reciting the profound sadhana of Shakyamuni Buddha, our enlightened teacher. And for those who have truly received Vajrayana empowerments, since we may quite often break Samaya precepts, we confess and make offerings before the Dharma protectors and the Dakinis and so on. These are all quite truly very important for us. Moreover, during our recitations before and after the sessions, we always hold a revered prayer wheel. This also allows us to accumulate a great deal of merit without even realizing it. Everyone knows Chome Rinpoche and the great masters of the past. Whenever they spoke reciting Avalokiteshvara mantra turning prayer wheel, they said it was inconceivable if in a day you haven't accomplished even just half an hour. The merit and benefits of using the prayer wheel are also truly inconceivable. Therefore, on one hand, we should deepen our understanding of the Dharma teachings, and at the same time, within our own mind streams, we should be able to give rise to the genuine reasoning of the true Dharma. This is indeed very important and truly crucial. Nowadays, as Buddhists, the way we study the Dharma and the way worldly people study knowledge, these two, I believe, should not be the same. For example, whether it's the various universities in the world or the different places where people study Buddhism, they all acquire some knowledge, but it's merely a matter of understanding or knowing something. Whereas understanding the Dharma is not just about knowing, it also involves a profound kind of realization, a deep understanding. This brings tremendous benefit to one's own mind stream. In this respect, there is definitely quite a difference indeed. So, for us modern people, it seems that our fundamental understanding of the Dharma and our comprehensive understanding of worldly knowledge absolutely must not be confused as the same thing. There must be a clear and distinct differentiation between them. Everyone should be clear about it. So today, we will continue our discussion on the chapter on impermanence.
Mirtse lam chammo rang lam ji tablar jangchak rang tamchur number masibe shibar namlang kurwa rang.
For the one who keeps watch, the night is long. For the weary traveler, the road is long. For the ignorant who do not know the Dharma, the path of samsara is even longer. This is explained here. It comes from the Mahaprajna Paramita Shastra, and similar passages can also be found in some other scriptures. For those who keep watch at night, the night feels extremely long. For example, in the past, those who kept watch throughout the night, and even in the present day, perhaps for instance those working demanding night shifts in certain hotels, they may be required to check on various aspects every single hour. So for people who keep watch at night alone, the night feels very long and particularly difficult for them. For those who are weary travelers on the road, their aching body and mind are both quite exhausted. And in this particular case, the dusty road also feels extremely long and endless to them. If one does not truly understand the liberating Dharma, such as the fundamental Four Noble Truths and the true principles of the Dharma, for ordinary, ignorant people who do not understand these, for them the path of samsara seems even longer and more arduous. The journey of samsara is extremely, extremely long. This profound truth is also explained in some of our sacred commentaries, where its ultimate source is given through certain illustrative stories and narratives. For example, when the monks were chatting casually, they asked each other, "What is the very longest thing?" Some monks immediately said it is keeping watch at night, because for those who keep watch, the night feels very long. For those individuals who are traveling, particularly for people whose bodies are utterly exhausted, making the road ahead feel incredibly long and arduous. Later, when the Buddha learned about this important discussion, the Buddha said that these are not truly the longest things. Although they may feel long and quite drawn out, in reality, for ordinary people who do not understand the Dharma, their time wandering in samsara is even very much longer indeed. There are also such accounts. There is also a story where a celestial deva respectfully asked the enlightened Buddha whether it is the weary night watchman who feels the night is extraordinarily long, or the arduous journey of the distant traveler that feels remarkably long. The Buddha said, "For those who have not encountered the Dharma, the path of samsara for ordinary people is even longer." Then he recited this particular verse. There are such accounts as well. Also, at that time, King Prasenajit, because he suffered from a bit of persistent insomnia, felt that the night was exceedingly long. When he consulted the Buddha about this, the Buddha also truly recited this verse. There are also a few different versions like this. I might not remember some of the details very clearly. Sometimes I just take a quick look, but I just see that all of you are very much reading the Tibetan commentary. That's actually quite good. We should rely on the commentaries because the stories explained in them are accurate. If I see information elsewhere, at that time, the Buddha had already taught the fourfold assembly of disciples about 4 situations that cause people to sleep little and remain more awake. So what exactly are these 4 situations? The first is a man who constantly thinks about his girlfriend. The second is a woman who always thinks about her boyfriend. The third is a thief who lives in constant apprehension, always fearful of the possibility of being discovered and apprehended by others. All of these individuals typically spend a greater amount of time awake, and consequently less time spent sleeping. There is indeed one additional that the enlightened Buddha, those who embark upon the spiritual path as practitioners, when they are truly diligent in the Dharma, when they are practicing very diligently themselves, they also tend to spend more time awake and considerably less time sleeping as well. So the 3 situations mentioned earlier are actually not that significantly long-lasting or enduring. So what exactly is the absolute longest and most incredibly difficult thing to truly endure? It's when we are deeply immersed in the cycle of samsara, truly exhausted and completely unaware of the profound Dharma. The path of samsara is endless and boundless. So in this very particular regard, sentient beings are truly pitiable. This path is extremely long. At this particular time, there was a Brahmin who heard about the Buddha's profound teaching on the long and arduous road of samsara. When he heard these teachings, he was deeply moved. He was so profoundly touched that he tried every possible way to go before the Buddha and respectfully ask him some questions. He thought that perhaps he wanted to seek liberation himself, but he wondered whether he actually had enough time. So he began to ask the Buddha. He said, about how many Buddhas will actually appear in the future in the world. And the Buddha replied to him, in the future, as many Buddhas as the grains of sand in the Ganges will appear one after another. Then he thought to himself, there will be so many Buddhas in the future. In that case, it's fine if I don't practice for now. There will be opportunities, he thought, and then he prepared to leave. After leaving, he thought again. He had already inquired about the Buddhas of the future, but he pondered why he had not yet asked about the Buddhas of the past. So he returned to the Buddha and respectfully asked him once more, "Let me ask about the Buddhas of the past, about how many of them have actually appeared." Then the Buddha answered him, saying, "As for the past, indeed. In fact, as many Buddhas as the grains of sand in the Ganges river have also appeared." At that very moment he felt that he had completely missed his chance, because so many Buddhas had already appeared in the past, indeed, but he himself had not aspired to liberation. Maybe in the future, even though many Buddhas will appear, if he continued to be so careless, he definitely would not be able to attain liberation. Afterwards, he deeply regretted it. Then he earnestly requested ordination in front of the revered Buddha and attained a profound state of spiritual realization. So, after the Buddha learned of this, he recited this profound verse. Therefore, for us, as ordinary people, we do know that some things can be very long and drawn out. If you wait for them, whether you are a night watchman or a weary traveler, these moments all feel incredibly long. But for an ordinary person, samsara is extremely long. Why do we say that samsara is so long? Actually, it is very painful within samsara. As long as sentient beings are truly suffering, they feel that this world is indeed very hard to endure and very difficult to get through indeed. In the past, some people asked the physicist Albert Einstein, "What is your theory of relativity truly like?" He then gave a vivid analogy. If you were to sit on a scorching pile of burning coals, even if the time is very short, it feels especially long because it is so painful. But if you sit next to the person you like the most in the entire world, even if a long time passes, you don't feel that it's long at all. Indeed, it feels very short. So this is what is truly called relativity. Actually, when you get to the very root of it, it also has something significant to do with our mind. When we feel that it's hard to endure, even if only a few days have passed, it can truly feel like years, almost unbearably long. But if you genuinely feel happy, then like in the heavenly realms where thousands of years pass, to them it seems like just a moment. If you spend your days indulging yourself, time passes with great happiness. So in this world, the arduous path of samsara is incredibly long and endless. This profound truth is precisely the reason why. Within this truly vast and boundless ocean of suffering, there genuinely is no discernible boundary. This is also mentioned in the 400 verses on the middle way. In this truly vast and boundless ocean of suffering, there truly is no discernible boundary. How can foolish individuals who are deeply submerged within it not feel profound fear? I think that's how it's said. How can one not feel fear? It means that this great ocean of samsara we are in is an ocean of suffering, truly boundless and limitless. Ordinary people do not know what to accept or reject. They are already immersed in this cycle of samsara, so why do you not feel fear? Why do you not know what to accept or reject? There is a reason for this as well. So for ourselves, perhaps we need to develop better judgment and wisdom in this matter. If we live within this samsara and feel that it is not very long and that life is very happy indeed, it may be because the renunciation has not yet arisen within us. If you truly understand the inherent nature of this vast ocean of suffering, or if you know that within the cycle of samsara there are all sorts of different kinds of pervasive suffering, you might, even in a short period of time, develop the wish to seek liberation. So I think for great masters of the past, why did they make great progress in their brief lifetimes? It seems that some great masters at the beginning were truly just ordinary people through and through, but later, in a very short period of time, they developed truly tremendous courage. He was ready to abandon samsara and seek liberation right away. So as for us humans, on the surface we all have eyes and noses and seem quite similar, but some people may have a richer store of positive karma, while others have extraordinary dedication and diligence. For example, in this way, even though we live together in the same environment, some people progress very quickly, while others are always consistently lagging quite far behind, unable to catch up with the rest. This too is profoundly related to the immense power of our diligent efforts or the inherent strength of our accumulated positive karma. There are still significant differences.
Shurur nanab dagmet na se yi yin se jijig nur.
I have children and wealth. The foolish are deluded by this. But inside and out there is truly no self. So what children, what material wealth is there to speak of or to cling to? Because as worldly people who think the most important thing in life is having children of our very own, or having wealth of our own, and this brings a truly great sense of satisfaction. If we do not have children, we feel like something significant is missing, as if the whole lineage, the continuation of the family, and our own personal legacy have all been cut off. It's considered especially unfortunate. This is how people think. Of course, if you don't have wealth in today's world, it might be hard to even survive. It's very difficult. So for worldly people, the mark of success is having a house full of children, having offspring. This is seen as a kind of success, or even as a standard by which to measure what it means to be a real person. And then whether it's precious gold, gleaming silver, or other valuable treasures, or all kinds of accumulated wealth, these are considered very important possessions. But in reality, this is truly the regrettable behavior of the foolish indeed, because as for the foolish, it seems they don't even care what the next life will be like. They just have a rather short-sighted worldview. Within this particular perspective, indeed, as long as you have money, that's great. If you have people around you, that's great too. nowadays for people in the world. It's often about whether you have a car or a house. When it comes to starting a family, many standards are used to measure it, like how much money you currently have in your bank account and so on. Do you possess a house? Do you own a car? These are indeed their established standards and expectations. So, in fact, this is a kind of delusion. Of course, this is a relatively high-level perspective, one that is measured from the viewpoint of a practitioner. If we look at it from the perspective of ordinary people, of course, having wealth or descendants is also good, and for them, this is also very important. But here we are talking about it from the perspective of practitioners. In reality, this kind of thinking is actually not very reasonable. Why is it unreasonable? Let me explain from two aspects. On the one hand, your accumulated wealth and your beloved children, you can't take them with you when you die. They are of no use to you then. This is from the general worldly perspective. Secondly, from the perspective of worldly truth, because of the deeply ingrained concept of my son, my wealth, my gold and treasures and so forth, all of these. We have these kinds of notions, but from the perspective of the ultimate truth, the so-called self in this world does not exist. Of course, the reasoning for the non-existence of self, everyone here is someone who studies theory. There shouldn't be problem understanding this. Everyone knows ultimately the so-called self cannot be found. Like the son of a barren woman, turtle fur or rabbit horns, there's absolutely no difference. So if in the ultimate sense there is no self, if both internally and externally there is no self, then how could there be mine, like my son, my wealth, and so on? How could such things exist? It's simply impossible for them to exist. So, regarding this particular case, it is widely said that there was once a merchant named Joyful. He was indeed quite a successful and prosperous man in his endeavors, with 8 sons in his family, as well as gold, silver, and treasures. He had numerous servants, a multitude of maid servants, and so on. He possessed all these valuable and extensive things. However, in reality, he was exceedingly arrogant. Because he had such ego-clinging and attachment to possessions, later, due to carelessness and indulgence, he eventually died of illness. After he died, perhaps he had indeed created a great deal of negative karma for his entire family, and thus fell into the lower realm. After the Buddha discovered this, he then spoke this significant verse. That is one aspect of the story. There is also another aspect as well to consider. There was also another merchant named Joyful. He was extremely stingy in his financial dealings. He was unwilling to give even the slightest thing, not even to a crow. His name was Chandana or something like that. After he died, because he had been especially stingy in his previous life, he was reborn into a particularly lowly and humble family, a very modest background. Later, due to his karma, he himself ended up like a complete and utter beggar, wandering everywhere to beg for food. When he reached the doorstep of his previous life's home, he originally hoped to get some food, but the gatekeeper beat him and injured him. He eventually died as a result of this or something like that. After the Buddha understood this principle, he also recited this verse. So, in our human world, it is indeed undeniably the case that the basic symbol of a family unit within this earthly realm is one's own children and their wealth. These are indeed considered the most important things in life. But as for this particular aspect, in fact, it is just as was mentioned earlier. If we are truly Buddhists, on one hand, we have no choice but to go along with the world. What the world truly acknowledges, I also acknowledge also. Master Chandrakirti also said the same thing. There is absolutely nothing wrong with this at all. But on the other hand, if we truly seek the truth behind it, then in reality all of these things also turn into nothingness. They are nothing but empty names. Within this profound reasoning, they are also inherently unattainable. Therefore, in different environments, we also need to diligently seek. Of course, as we commonly say now, if we only talk about the abstract concept of emptiness, or only discuss the most profound and intricate teachings, sometimes that may not be entirely appropriate. So, as Mahayana Buddhists, it is certainly excellent to have the profound view of Madhyamaka in our own continuum. That is, of course, very good. But when it comes to our words and actions towards others, or in our interactions with people and things, in this process, we should also go along with worldly conventions. This is also very important. At the same time, perhaps now, It is crucial, especially for those of us who wish to promote the Dharma, whether we are from Tibetan Buddhism or other Buddhist traditions. We should always try our very best to adapt to the world and keep up with the changing times. This is also very important, whether we are monastics or lay people. As practicing Buddhists living in our contemporary society, there may be more and more changes happening now. What kinds of changes? Perhaps in every single aspect of our daily lives today, there will be truly earth-shaking changes. The fundamental way people used to live, the essential necessities of life, including the goals they aspired to in life, all of these are absolutely bound to change. Especially now, in this current era of flourishing and rapidly advancing AI, if we Mahayana Buddhists always diligently stay away from all worldly affairs and concerns and avoid all noisy matters, and only practice in solitude. Of course, for individual practitioners, this is excellent. The highest level of people are just like the great masters of Tibetan Buddhism in the past, who would retreat in deep mountains or caves, secluding themselves to practice. For them, modern electronic devices and computers are simply completely unnecessary. But generally speaking, it is also very important to understand all kinds of worldly knowledge. Otherwise, in the future, if we truly want to keep up with the pace of everyone else in the world, we might fall far behind. You may also know now that in recent news, the massive power station is being built downstream on the Yalung Changpo River. They are currently constructing an enormous power plant. The total investment is 1.2 trillion yuan. That figure is quite remarkable. It's much, much more than the total investment in the Three Gorges Dam project on the Yangtze River. But the fundamental reason for this, as many people have commented and observed, is that in the future, in the era of AI, the use of chips may make the plateau region particularly suitable because it generates a lot of heat. If it's in a city with especially high temperatures, it's very difficult to manage. Right now, in the Guizhou area, many artificial intelligence projects are located there, primarily because they require a truly huge amount of electricity. This makes it considerably more reasonable to place them on the plateau. So, as for this project in the future, it could potentially have a significant impact on many different aspects of Asia, whether it's a truly positive effect or a disruptive one. There are all kinds of opinions. So, what exactly is the true purpose of this? Perhaps as we currently see the world now, AI is still in its very early infancy. Even when we translate or look up information now, a lot of it is done using popular AI platforms like Claude or DeepSeek. These powerful platforms are constantly competing with each other. In the future, our world may see even fiercer competition, and when that happens, if we as Buddhists have no knowledge in this area at all, there could be a lot of losses for us. Because now we also know that in the process of listening, contemplating and practicing, whether it's looking up information or doing some related tasks ourselves, for example, by taking on certain responsibilities. Actually, AI tools like these, whoever can truly use them, even if they're just ordinary people, can certainly surpass others in many areas, such as technology or modern medicine. So if we completely shut ourselves off from the outside world, then I'm afraid that Buddhism will face some significant problems in the future as well, because if everyone in the world is actively using some kind of highly advanced technology, and all we do is merely watch how others are utilizing it, but beyond that, we don't know how to use it ourselves, that might not work either. Of course, we also can't let ourselves be constantly distracted by these things. If we are always scattered and preoccupied with these matters, our short lives might be completely consumed by them. When the time truly comes for you to leave this world, you might not even have developed a simple understanding of impermanence in your own mind. In the end, when you die, you'll be no different from an ordinary person. Even people who aren't Buddhist might have surpassed you. That's a very real possibility. So when people do anything at all, we should also know how to maintain a sense of proportion in all aspects. This is quite important for us. Hundreds and thousands of castes, all men and women, diligently accumulate worldly enjoyments, but all ultimately end up in the hands of the Lord of Death, Yama. Here, hundreds and thousands just means a great many. Hundreds of thousands, countless numbers, all kinds of men and women from different castes, men and women, as I saw in the commentary. In the Indian commentary, it clearly states that men refers to adult human males and women refers to adult human females. Sometimes when these Indian commentaries explain things, they can be rather, well, the other day I was reading Padmasambhava's, the commentary on the Sutra of the True Name. In the commentary on the Sutra of the True Name, it says, furthermore, O noble Vajradhara, when he explains it indeed, because Padmasambhava's commentary on the Sutra of the True Name is just like the Indian cricket commentary here. Commenting on the game line by line, he frequently uses dene, furthermore, and in our Chinese texts, after furthermore, there is often a natural pause, or uses this to translate. Originally, this is just a function word, but here he uses it in the context of the 9 vehicles in sequence. What is the dene of the Shravakayana, Pratyekabuddhayana and Bodhisattvayana, all the way up to Ati-yoga? And moreover, Padmasambhava, above Ati-yoga, there is what is called absolute yoga and ultimate yoga, apparently, the Terma tradition above this Ati-yoga. There are even much higher and more profound forms of yogas. He interprets furthermore as referring to the entire sequence of the 9 vehicles. So I was a little bit confused and somewhat perplexed when translating how to explain this. We originally saw, it seems like there's nothing, but in India, because of Guru Rinpoche, India Sura cave at that time, this commentary on the True Name Sutra was composed among all the annotations of the True Name Sutra. Guru Rinpoche's profound commentary is indeed very important. However, it is also clearly noted here, so you can certainly take a moment to carefully look at this as well. Man refers to men, woman refers to women. This is indeed huikai, the armor of profound wisdom, as he explains it. All these men and women diligently accumulate valuable resources and substantial wealth, including precious gold, gleaming silver, and all sorts of valuable things. In fact, all the men and women in the world, they stop at absolutely nothing, completely disregarding their future lives and their well-being, and engage in all kinds of arduous and demanding hard labor, and in the very end, all the considerable wealth they manage to accumulate is handed over entirely to the hands of the Lord of Death. There is nothing he can do about it himself. We people in the world often say, you bring nothing with you at birth and you can take nothing with you at death. This is an unchangeable reality. Many people have been just like this as well. Back in the time of the Buddha, there was a merchant leader. He went outside to look for treasure, and they accumulated a great deal of wealth. The very last time, as he stepped over the familiar threshold of his own front door, at that unexpected moment, he suddenly died. After he died, his wife at home also tragically passed away. Then all of this accumulated wealth was being systematically taken away by the powerful king. After the Buddha learned about this situation, he also spoke this profound verse. This particular verse, in fact, truly applies to us worldly people in our daily lives, who use all sorts of methods to continually keep accumulating wealth. But when it comes to actually using it ourselves, it's very, very little. We often talk about the 5 destroyers of wealth. So there are some elderly people living alone whose considerable wealth can't be enjoyed by anyone, not even themselves at all. Especially nowadays, many people, those without money, are actually doing okay. When they die, there's nothing left for them to be greedy about. They come into this world fairly clean and leave just as cleanly. There's nothing much to it. But for those individuals who possess wealth, most of it ultimately ends up being handed over to the god of death in the end. They can't handle it themselves either, especially in today's world. For example, in a family, the husband doesn't tell the wife about his bank card, and the wife doesn't tell the husband about hers. In the end, it's the bank that profits. The bank has a rule that after a certain period, if there is no owner, they can take possession of it. So I've heard that Swiss banks, as well as some other Western banks, have had many big shots deposit their money there due to strict privacy and security. When the money is kept there, eventually these people leave this world without noticing or get arrested. There are all kinds of situations. And then all the wealth we've worked so hard to accumulate, All these assets we've gathered, in the end, we still cannot truly enjoy them ourselves. So this is also a profound kind of impermanence. In the end, it's ultimately death that takes complete control. Of course, death itself doesn't literally use it, but the original owner truly has no way to use it anymore. Therefore, when it comes to accumulating wealth, according to the Sigalovada Sutta and the Samyukta Agama, just as they describe, a portion should be used for offerings, a portion for charity, a portion can be invested for oneself for their future financial well-being, and a portion can be used for personal needs. Properly allocating your wealth is very important. Next, let's talk about all accumulation will be exhausted, and all heights will fall, all gatherings will disperse, and all life will end. This is something that is explained quite clearly in our Words of My Perfect Teacher. It's made very clear in many teachings. We often talk about the four aspects of impermanence, the four sides of impermanence. All the wealth that is accumulated, all of it will eventually be depleted. This mainly refers to the resources and possessions that people enjoy. That's the main point here. And then regarding the heights, such as the specific places where we currently live and reside, the houses that we live in, these impressive buildings, all those incredibly tall buildings and towering skyscrapers, or as explained in some commentaries, they interpret it as referring to one's own body. In the end, the body too will collapse. Buildings will also eventually collapse. So on all heights will fall, just like the 110-story building in America in the past, which was completely destroyed during 9/11. Although that's not exactly the same. But when we truly see significant earthquakes or devastating tsunamis, at those critical times, all man-made structures, or even natural structures, tall buildings and skyscrapers, will all ultimately be destroyed in an instant. So, the places we use in our daily lives and work are also impermanent. All gatherings will eventually disperse. All of these, your own relatives and friends, even though everyone is happy together now, laughing and sharing precious moments while reuniting and gathering together, before long they will all part ways. This refers to the important people with whom you share your daily life and experiences. Those who enjoy things together with you, they too are impermanent. All life will end. Everyone alive in this world whom we know will ultimately die as well. So people who live for the sake of life itself, in the end cannot escape the Lord of Death. No one can avoid his sudden attack. Eventually everyone will leave this world behind without any warning. As for this story, back in the ancient city of Shravasti there were 4 prominent merchants. One of them was especially fond of accumulating wealth and placed great importance on making money. Another merchant cared a lot about his residence. He might have been renovating his house every day. Among our lamas and nuns there are also people like this. Some individuals are quite reluctant to spend their money and just keep saving it up and up, while others are constantly renovating their homes and pay great attention to their living arrangements every day. There was a merchant who truly valued family reunions and placed great importance on gatherings with family and friends. Another wealthy merchant cared a great deal about his precious lifespan and was very deeply concerned with achieving longevity, prolonging his life. But later, all of them eventually encountered the inevitable impermanence. The one who especially liked accumulating money just now, all his wealth was taken away by the king, the one who cared so much about his residence and spent years perfecting every detail. In the end, a fire broke out and burned down his buildings. As for the one who gathered friends and family, they eventually dispersed as well in due course. And the last one, who especially wanted to live a long life, he also died. Upon observing the impermanence of these 4 individuals, the Buddha then proceeded to speak this profound verse. This interpretation is also one way of explaining it, primarily because each fundamental principle presented here is represented by a person. In fact, in our world, there really are such people. Some people value accumulating wealth, while others place great importance on building. about 20 or 30 years ago in our Mani treasure district. I often use his story as a prime example. I just simply cannot forget it. He stayed at the Institute for about 5 or 6 years, and for all those 5 or 6 years he was always building houses, just building and building. In the end he left. After finishing building the house, he left himself. Some people really do care a lot about houses. Some may care a lot about accumulating wealth. Some people, after getting some money, or often go home to reunite with their beloved families, while some are always trying to find effective ways to live longer every single day. Actually, people are like this nowadays. Back then, these 4 situations appeared in the city of Shravasti. The Buddha also spoke this verse. That's just one way of putting it. Also, when the Buddha was residing in Shravasti, there was a mother who had been blessed with an only son. Later, her son died, and after he died, the mother was extremely, extremely heartbroken, almost as if she had gone mad with grief and desperation. Then she ran to the Buddha, pleading through her tears, saying that her most beloved son had died, and asked if the Buddha had any way to bring him back to life. The Buddha said, "I can indeed save your dear son." I've told this story before. I can certainly save your son, but I do have a specific condition, a particular request. You must quickly go to many different places. I urgently need a fire that comes from a household where no one has ever died, not even once. If you can find this, I will find a way to bring your son back to life. So the woman went door to door everywhere, asking, "Has anyone ever died in your family?" Of course, there was no such household. Looking at everyone here today, is there anyone whose family has never experienced a death? It could very well be your beloved grandparents, or even your parents. Everyone has lost relatives or friends. Countless people around us throughout history and in every community have experienced death, so she simply couldn't find such a flame. When she couldn't find it, she finally realized, it's not her son who has died. In fact, death is a very normal and natural phenomenon. So her heart found profound comfort and solace. Then the Buddha recited this meaningful verse. There are also some much longer stories that follow. But as I talk about this, everyone should also understand, sometimes, sadly, we may lose our beloved family members, or your entire building might suddenly collapse, or your house might be demolished. I don't know if houses are still being demolished these days. And the other day they said over 1,000 houses would be torn down. If they are demolished, don't be sad about it. Whatever is high will eventually fall. And then, if you lose your wallet, that very day, one of our relatives, he had an amount of money, and suddenly he tragically lost his wallet. He almost went completely crazy, it truly seemed. He said there was 15,000 yen in it. He went to the local police station to check the surveillance footage. In the end, it seemed like the money was in his bag. But then there was an individual who had their entire head completely covered up, and when he left his clothes there, that person took the money from his wallet. The police station couldn't do anything about it either, and he was extremely, extremely upset about it. He said, I feel like there's no meaning to my life anymore. Indeed, sometimes people in this world have this attachment to family, attachment to money, attachment to status. The higher you climb, the harder you fall. That's how it is. Nowadays, many of our current leaders or people with certain important positions, they used to be quite prominent and successful, but in the end they all end up falling from grace or losing their positions. In those situations, they are bound to feel utterly hopeless. So if you understand these things even a little, you'll probably have some genuine and lasting peace of mind that others might envy. Back then, at our 9th grade graduation, they asked me to share a simple piece of advice. I said I didn't really have any special tips, but the Buddha taught about the 4 aspects of impermanence. Maybe when you walk the path of life in the future, you'll often encounter these things. All heights will fall, all gatherings will disperse, all life will end, all accumulation will be exhausted. These 4 profound truths are very important. Every single person, no matter who they are, all individuals, will experience these phenomena. Especially now, in the age of the internet, impermanence can manifest extremely quickly. There are all kinds of situations, and even I see that nowadays on the internet. For example, when people comment on someone in particular, Many things are sometimes a bit, because a lot of people, for their own sake, including short videos or on platforms like TikTok or Kuaishou, people want to get a lot of traffic for themselves, because traffic means money. So for this reason, as soon as they hear about something, for example, if they hear about an official or hear something about someone, they immediately start making up all kinds of images and all sorts of text, and then use them to publicly smear that particular person. Or actually, this doesn't really comply with the law. For example, if someone has embezzled wealth or has some serious moral issue, according to the law, the prosecutor's office must first formally file charges. However, before the prosecutor's office proceed to file these charges, there must first be a case officially filed by the Public Security Bureau. And after the case is filed, an investigation and inquiry conducted. There is a whole series of procedures involved. Once completed, the case goes to the prosecutor's office, then to court. The court begins the trial, and then after the verdict, this person is a thief, this person committed a moral wrongdoing, this person is corrupt, or whatever this person. Only then do you have the right to say so. Other than that, we don't say anything else. This is also very much the case in Chinese law. For example, when someone is arrested, at the precise time of the arrest, there are all kinds of news everywhere. Actually, an amount of this is just commercial manipulation and media sensationalism. Some of it is done in the name of the government, and some in the name of individuals. So sometimes the actual legal process, at the very least, might take half a month or so. In the end, strictly speaking, it's the same internationally as well. Only after the court has sentenced someone and they are imprisoned, at that point, if the person is a thief, then they are a thief. If it's a criminal offense, then it's a criminal offense. But that's not how things are now. As soon as there's even a hint of something, wow, the news is everywhere. So speaking from a worldly perspective, this is very unreasonable. There are some things we really shouldn't believe, because if you believe them, in actual reality, they have absolutely no legal effect at all. But in the current internet age, many people, for their own various purposes, even pretend to be all kinds of government platforms, including having a dark screen as their background, and then they act as if they are official themselves. At this point, your traffic starts to increase, and once you have that, you start making money for yourself. So I see that some of our Buddhists and practitioners also just follow the crowd, go with the flow, and join in, and then make all sorts of comments themselves. Actually, this should be something to observe and wait on. If the court really sentences someone, then wow, this person really has committed a crime. You can say whatever you want at that point. At that particular time, you can freely speak out. But before there is a final court verdict, if you say something, and if someone were to sue you or take you to court, it could become very difficult for you to adequately defend yourself. So sometimes in such situations, we should also strive to fully comprehend some fundamental worldly principles, especially in this rapidly changing world, which is completely a world where right and wrong are turned upside down. Many things are neither proper nor legal, not to mention when we examine them according to the Dharma. If we slander or defame someone, the fault is extremely serious. There's no need to elaborate on that. But from the perspective of worldly law, before the law has officially passed its final judgment, any statement made is merely speculation, just an educated estimate. In Buddhist logic, we call this inferential awareness, right? Or is it not inferential awareness? What is it called? What I have just mentioned is a kind of theoretical hypothesis, a sort of perceptual illusion. As students of Buddhist logic, we should fully and completely understand this fundamental principle. Because all who are born must die, all sentient beings are heading toward death. The results of good and evil follow karma just like a shadow follows the body. Continuing from what was said earlier, as long as there is life, as long as something arises, in the end it is bound to die. Because of this, all sentient beings will die, because all sentient beings are born beings. All conditioned phenomena. Didn't we also discuss this particular topic during yesterday's examination? All conditioned phenomena are inherently impermanent. So, as for all sentient beings, because they are conditioned phenomena, they will ultimately and inevitably eventually die. then after death. Is it really, as Confucius and Zhuangzi said the day before yesterday, that death is a final resting place? Actually, it is not. With the results of good and evil, karma follows along. Karma follows like a shadow follows the body, no matter where you go or hide. Just like your own shadow. Good and evil will still always follow you throughout your existence. If you create good karma, you will receive the results of a good rebirth. If you commit evil, you will receive the results of an unfortunate rebirth. So cause and effect never fail. At that time, King Prasenajit, it seems that his wife had died, right? He was always extremely heartbroken each time. After grieving for what felt like endless days and nights, it seemed that his tears had soaked through his clothes and hair. In the end, he went to see the Buddha for the sake of his queen. When he met the Buddha, at that particular time, he would much rather give up his elephants, and he would also rather give up everything else he possessed, but he was unwilling to live a life without his beloved queen. He remained deeply heartbroken all along. Later, the Buddha then recited this verse to him. Actually, there is truly nothing you should cry about. Nowadays, many of us are indeed the same. When a family member passes away, especially, I used to often see some nuns. When a family member died, even with several people holding them back, it was no use. They would cry loudly, sobbing and wailing. In some places, it is customary to cry loudly. But in fact, crying loudly is even worse, especially if a practitioner cries. In the process, it might indicate a lack of understanding about the concept of death and the impermanence of existence. If you must cry, do so quietly and silently. Don't cry out loud. If you say not to cry, maybe you just can't help it. Because indeed, when family members, parents, siblings pass away, you still feel very sad and heartbroken inside. This is true for everyone. It might sound simple when we talk about it, but in your heart it is definitely very painful. At that time, King Prasenajit said he was originally a disciple of the Buddha, and his practice was also quite good. But sometimes when we see the king, even he was so heartbroken when his queen passed away. So to not cry at all is actually very, very difficult indeed, truly. There are challenges to this. However, as a dedicated practitioner, I believe that crying and grieving for the deceased doesn't truly have any significant meaning or lasting impact. That's why the great practitioners of the past, they seem to have no particular feeling toward death or the living. It was as if they felt nothing at all. From a worldly perspective, it seems are numb or unfeeling. It doesn't seem reasonable for many things. But when one's practice reaches a certain level, this kind of state does indeed exist. Of course, there are some people who are simply and utterly evil and feel absolutely nothing at all. That is also possible, and it's a chilling thought to consider. Those who accumulate evil fall into hell, while those who do good are reborn in happy realms. As for the rest, the practitioners who have exhausted their defilements attain nirvana. If one commits evil deeds, they will fall into hell. This includes the reviving hell, the screaming hell, and so on. And because hell is pure suffering, there is not a single moment of happiness. If one commits the 10 non-virtuous acts and evil deeds, they will fall into hell. If one performs virtuous deeds, generosity and keeping precepts, then they will be reborn in the happy realms. The happy realms refer to the fortunate destinies, such as the human and heavenly realms. Apart from doing good or evil, there are also other kinds of virtuous actions, such as even better, more profound, and truly completely undefiled actions. For example, practicing emptiness, cultivating bodhicitta, or, according to the Hinayana tradition, practicing the profound truth of cessation and the truth of the path. In this way, one ultimately manifests the truth of cessation. As for these, in the very end, all afflictions are eliminated and one attains nirvana. Now, regarding this particular story, it mainly took place when the Buddha was in a certain place. At that time, a plague broke out, and many people died. It was just like the recent pandemic we experienced. A great number of people lost their lives. Then, through his divine eye, the Buddha saw that those sentient beings who had committed evil deeds had fallen into the hell realms. Some beings who had performed virtuous actions were reborn into the heavenly realms, or as human beings, and others who had practiced even greater virtues and wholesome dharmas, they ultimately attained complete nirvana without any remainder and achieved liberation. Therefore, when we practice, as everyone knows, generally engaging in virtuous actions, such as circumambulation, prostrations, or practicing mandala offerings, these are all very good as well. But at most they are causes for a favorable rebirth. If one commits evil deeds, of course, that becomes the cause for an unfortunate rebirth. But among all virtuous actions, there must be those that are causes for liberation. There are two types of karma, those that lead to liberation and those that lead to merit. Most importantly, especially for those of us studying the Mahayana, we should truly see how, through the methods of Vajrayana, we can come to recognize our own mind. If we can do this, then certainly, regarding the various things of the world, there will be nothing for you to envy. Or through the methods of Madhyamaka and Prajnaparamita, emptiness, we can recognize the true nature of the mind. This is also the realization that all phenomena are empty in nature. Truly realizing this emptiness, we have not attained enlightenment like a first Bhumi Bodhisattva. But just as Mipham Rinpoche explained in the relevant treatises, if one attains the level of realizing emptiness on the path of preparation, such a state will also not fall into the lower realms. Moreover, for oneself, regarding the illusory and fleeting worldly concerns and material wealth, there is absolutely no personal interest at all in these worldly things. Therefore, one's actions are purely virtuous. Thus, as practitioners, everything is inherently impermanent in this brief human life. If we just leave this world just like all the other ordinary people do, or in this very short and truly precious life, if we encounter such profound and precious teachings and then practice them earnestly with great spiritual depth and inner strength, perhaps if our practice is only superficial, just observing on the surface, or just studying on the surface, it may not have much effect. When it comes to doing things, even though we may not have any real realization ourselves, but if we infer from theory, for example, practicing emptiness, if you truly understand the teachings of the Middle Way, like Mipham Rinpoche explained in the Ornament of the Middle Way treatise, an unshakable conviction that cannot be taken, and a wisdom that cannot be taken away, at that point, even if thousands upon thousands of people come before you and try to lead you down other paths, your mind will not be swayed. Just as the great master Rendawa said in the latter verses of the Entering the Middle Way, as described in the concluding verses, therefore, among all forms of spiritual practice, attaining the ultimate nirvana of complete and utter exhaustion of all defilements is indeed the most profoundly important endeavor.
Gaya sanje rang sanje sanje namji nyanto kyar kulin danyer pomzat na shtiwo parvar mucho go.
All Buddhas, Pratyeka Buddhas, and even the Shravakas have completely abandoned this physical body. So whatsoever to mention even the mere ordinary people in the entire world, whether it is the Buddha, the Pratyeka Buddhas who practice the 12 links of dependent origination, or even the Shravakas, those who profoundly realize the fundamental selflessness of all persons, ultimately abandon their physical bodies. As for us ordinary, all the more so is this true. There is truly nothing further to be said regarding this undeniable fact, because everything is impermanent. In our Words of My Perfect Teacher, we are taught to contemplate the impermanence of the physical world and sentient beings. Many examples exist of impermanence in great masters and worldly rulers. When great masters expound on this, they also mention the Buddha, Bodhisattvas, and Shravakas, as well as the 80 great accomplished masters of India, the great accomplished masters of Tibet, and even the 25 main disciples of Guru Rinpoche, and so on. All of these are impermanent. So here too, impermanence is being discussed. When impermanence arrives, no one can truly stop it. At that particular time, when King Virudaka mobilized his army, he was ready to annihilate the Shakya clan. Shakyamuni Buddha, in order to demonstrate the inconceivable power of karma, placed 2 members of the Shakya clan on the moon. He put 2 of them on the moon, 2 more in the depths of the vast ocean, and another 2 were placed carefully within the serene valleys of the Mount Meru. Additionally, 2 more were placed inside his alms bowl he carried with him. But in the end, when the entire Shakya clan was exterminated, all of these people died as well. Just as it is described in the preliminary practices, they all turned into pools of blood. None of them could truly escape this impermanence. So, When the Buddha recited this verse, 80,000 people had already attained spiritual enlightenment. This means that the Buddha's power is truly inconceivable, but even so, karma cannot be transcended. When impermanence truly manifests, even our Buddha could do nothing about it. So sometimes when we recite the Sutra of longevity for others, or chant the longevity mantra, or perform the longevity empowerment, of course, if your remaining karma has not been exhausted, then certainly the blessings of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and the power of mantras are inconceivable and should be effective. But if your karma has already ripened, or your natural lifespan has already truly come to its inevitable end, then even if the medicine Buddha himself were to appear, there is absolutely nothing that can be done. So these truly great monks and accomplished masters indeed, including our previous generation of teachers, when they reach a certain age, also demonstrate parinirvana. This also shows that all things in this world, there is not a single phenomenon that is permanent and unchanging. This is related to the following verse, which in our commentary seems to be discussed together. It's a case story. When translating this particular element, its precise position was slightly adjusted and fine-tuned. Whether in the vast expanse of the sky, the deep mysterious ocean, or the hidden crevices of the deepest mountains, no matter where you choose to live and reside, you absolutely cannot escape the death. Here it states that when you eventually die, there is nothing you can do if you are in any of these three places. Whether it's the expansive sky, the vast ocean, or the solid land nowadays in many countries, they possess military forces like the ground army, the aerial air force, and the naval navy. And when they engage in conflict, some fight at sea, while others fight in the air, and some fight on land. In the same way, if we human beings were to live in the vast expanse of the sky, or deep within the ocean and hidden crevices of the great mountains, no matter where you may live, there is no way to truly avoid death. It is an inescapable truth for all. In the distant past, in Rajagriha, there once lived 4 Brahmin brothers who knew that they would tragically die within 7 short days. They possessed extraordinary supernatural powers and abilities, and their powers were quite formidable. They tried to find a way not to die, because usually, whether it was changing the sun and moon or the mountains, rivers and earth, they were very capable. Later they come up with their unique solution to evade the inevitable grasp of death. The eldest of the 4 brothers said, "I will live in the vast deep ocean and make it my home, in the deep part of the sea, neither above nor below, and the god of death will not be able to find me there." The second brother then declared, "I will make my dwelling place in the king of mountains, specifically in the very heart of Mount Sumeru, where even the god of death cannot gain entry." The third brother declared, "If I were to fly high up in the vast open sky, they would not be able to catch me either." The fourth brother then stated, "I plan to cleverly hide myself among the crowds within the busy city. That way, they definitely won't be able to find me." But in the end, on the 7th day, the one who was hiding deep beneath the ocean waters in the sea was eaten by a fish. The one hiding inside Mount Sumeru, the mountain started to collide again with tremendous force and destructive power, and he was crushed to death when the mountain closed its crevice. The one flying in the sky, hiding in the void. These people possess truly great and formidable supernatural powers. This particular one fell down, suddenly just completely fell down. And finally, the one who was in the city, the one among the large crowd, also suddenly died unexpectedly. So, after the Buddha understood this principle at that time, he also recited this particular verse, a profound and meaningful one. Actually, when a person truly dies, no matter where you hide or see a doctor or perhaps take some nectar pills or longevity pills, none of it is effective. In the end, it all comes down to this. Just as it is said in the Sutra of Impermanence, there has never been a single thing that is not swallowed by impermanence. Previously, Yijing translated a text called the Sutra of Impermanence. which is relatively short, not very long. In it, it says, there has never been a single thing that is not swallowed by impermanence. This is actually quite interesting. If we have time, I have also compared this Sutra of Impermanence with the Tibetan version before, and in many places it matches quite well. So looking at the whole world, is there anything that is not devoured by impermanence? There isn't a single place like that either. If you're looking for a place where there is no death, you won't find one. So what should we do? Everyone should reflect on this carefully. All right, we'll stop here for today.
Bandara Badma Asadar Bandara Badma Asadar Bandara Badma Asadar